Dart's Family Caregiving Strategies, Part 1, Creating Connections that Enrich Aging, presented by Colleen Fritsch, winner of 2009 National Family Caregiving Award. Copyright 2003 to 2013, Darts. This PowerPoint may not be copied without express written permission of Darts.
Thank you all for giving me an hour of your time. That is quite a gift, and I will try and make good use of it. The presentation I'm doing today is called Family Caregiving Strategies, and it is one of two presentations that have been requested and help content built by some of the caregivers that we serve. So they have found this useful, and I hope you will find it useful as well. Just a brief word about the handouts. Most of the day for this hour, this is what we're going to be working off of, is this little colored handout. This Caring with Confidence is just a nice Caregiving 101 overview. Perhaps you're a member of a family and other family members should be with us today or could learn from this. Take this with, and it'll kind of work as a guide for them as well. Although I'm sure you'll be much more enriched because you were here. So, that said, let's begin looking at family caregiving strategies. How many of you are here because there's an older person in your life right now that you are concerned about and you want to do the best job you can at serving? Great. Almost all of you. And how many of you are here because you're planning for the future and you want to be ready for whatever comes down the road someday? And how many of you are here but you really think there's someone else in your family who should be here instead, but you're here and so here we are? All right, fair enough. Well, let's work through this together. I think you will find that you are not alone. 20% of American workforce today is serving someone at home with a chronic illness. Now, maybe that's a child with disabilities, maybe that's a family with short-term disability, maybe it's an older adult that needs help. But the caregiver journey is not unique in today's workforce. It's affecting our work, our productivity, and it's an opportunity for camaraderie in the workforce. Well, let's begin at family caregiving strategies. We're going to look at caregiving from a historical perspective. Do you remember your parents talking about the caregiving issue? Do you remember your older cousins talking about a caregiver issue, or your aunts and uncles? Of course not. So we'll talk about why that is. Then we'll talk about assessing first the needs of the elder. Then we'll look at what the family needs. And then what are some resources? So we're going to try and take a structured look at this that hopefully you can use for your caregiving role and find strategies that will work for you as an individual and for your family and group. So let's start with the historical perspective. So in the 1940s and 50s, when, maybe even the 60s, when your parents' were in their 80s, what was the reality? How old did your grandparents live to be? In their 80s, okay. In their 70s. So we're living longer now. In fact, in 1947, the average age, life expectancy, was about 61 years. So they didn't have caregiving issues because people didn't live long enough to have caregiving issues. This is a new time, and we need to develop new strategies that, by the way, will not only serve the older adults we care about, but then as we age, the strategies we're preparing today will also inform our aging process. From going through the aging journey with my mom and dad, I now know how I want my aging journey to be, what I want to do and what I don't want to do as I look at my aging journey. And so that's our opportunity as well. When you and I were young, when this was us, and our parents wanted to know where to go and how to find information and where to go for the best advice, where did they turn? Their family, their neighbors, and oh yes, we had Dr. Spock. Remember him?
Oh, yeah.
Well, there is no Dr. Spock for us now as we're looking at the aging journey. In fact, we're writing it together. We're learning the best things to do and the things we want to stay away from doing. So we really are charting new territory together on this and creating our own systems of support for the people we care about and for ourselves when we get to be that age. So let's look at assessing the needs of the elder. Let me ask one more question before I start it. How many of you are here because you're concerned about a parent? Thank you. How about in-laws? Look at you guys are raising your hand multiple times. I guess that's why God gave us two hands. All right. So as I'm talking today, I will continue to refer to mom and dad or parents. And please know if you're talking about, if you're here concerned about an in-law or you're here concerned about an aunt or an uncle, that the strategies I use apply. It just that referring to them continually as older adults seems rather unpersonal. So I'll refer to them as the mom and pop kind of scenario, if that's all right. So when we're caregivers, everything revolves around that person we're caring about. And so when we're looking at how to develop good, positive caregiving strategies, it only makes sense that we start by looking at mom or dad, or mom and dad. So we want to take a look at their needs. Can we take a look at their journey and what their assets and their deficits are? Do we need to bring in a professional to do that? And if you do need to bring in a professional, there are nonprofits that serve older adults. The county caseworkers often will come, and in fact all of them throughout the state of Minnesota, if you call and ask for an in-home assessment, they will do that. If you need a professional assessment, that's available to you. But I want to kind of walk you through an assessment light and see if that can help inform your journey as you go through. So, obviously we want to include the elder in the discussions whenever possible, even if the elder you're caring about has a cognitive disease, I guess for lack of a better word. They can still be part of the conversation. They may not understand what you're talking about, but they'll understand that you're talking about them and that you're talking about them with love and concern. And that's an important thing for them to feel that they're part of their aging journey. Not that it's something being done to them, but that it's something being done with them. We want to not only focus on what are the needs of the elder, but what are the strengths of the elder. For instance, perhaps you have an elder who has been a social person all of their life, who being at a party or having friends over has always been important to them. Then certainly you want to take a look at how can we keep that strength going? How can we keep people around them? How can we keep a positive environment around them? And then understand that it would not be appropriate for me to, with all my love and concern, to go into Linda's life and make changes in Linda's life because I felt they were necessary. Just saying, she probably wouldn't appreciate it a lot. So please keep the elder that you're involved in as involved in the conversation as is appropriate, as involved as they can follow along in the conversation. So let's talk about a general assessment. And now instead of following that, I'm going to walk with you through this. So if you go to page 2, if you would, let's go through a general assessment. I was speaking last week with a caregiver who had just come back from visiting his mother out of state and was absolutely overwhelmed. She has cognitive issues, she has socialization issues, she has personality issues, she has housekeeping issues, and he just simply couldn't navigate and was totally overwhelmed. And we walked through this process. Let's take it one piece at a time, knowing that when we're done, we're still talking about a whole person. But let's try and break it down into operative divisions so that we can begin to get a handle on what the needs are. So, first of all, what is the person's physical health? What are their ongoing medical conditions? What are their temporary medical conditions? What are the medical things right now that you're dealing with? And can they safely navigate around their home? Are there throw rugs in the way that they might trip over? Have they had an accident? Have they had trouble seeing when they get up in the middle of the night? Take a look at their physical environment and their physical health and just make notes. Everything's okay there? We need help in this area. All right. What are their cognitive skills? There are a whole lot of very simple memory screenings available through your parents' healthcare provider. Take a look at, if you're concerned about their memory, I can tell you when I turned 50, 25% of my memory went. When I turned 60, another 15% of what I had left went. I also took that memory screening because I was concerned enough about my memory to wonder, is this, I now know the phrase, it's called normal cognitive decline. Aren't you all thrilled to know there is such a thing as normal cognitive decline? Or is this memory loss? I wanted to know. And if it's concerning me, if it's concerning you about your parents or even about yourself, consider the next time they go in for a routine physical to ask their doctor or their clinician to do a routine memory screening. It takes 10 to 15 minutes, but it's a good baseline for you and a good reassurance for you and your elder. All right, so what are their cognitive, I'm sorry, I missed the daily living. Let's go back to daily living. Do they have trouble dressing or bathing? Do they have trouble using the telephone, preparing meals, transportation, household chores? And I just want you to take note of what things do they do well, what things are they starting to need help with, and then their cognitive skills. Are they depressed? Do they have hopes and aspirations, and is there a way you can help them meet those hopes and aspirations? One of the things about getting older is that the world starts closing in. It's about less and less and less. I'm not comfortable driving at night. Now I'm not comfortable driving on highways. Now I'm not comfortable going up and down stairs as much as I used to. And so the world kind of starts going like this and closing in on them. If you can find a more, if you can find something, if they have any technical skills, wouldn't they love to Skype with their grandchildren? If you can find a more, bring some volunteers over to engage them in a project or have them participate in something in their local community, if you can give them more, it's such a blessing. It's such a gift beyond their expectations because they've gotten used to less. And then what's the environment in their home? And what are their housing considerations? We had a caregiver that we worked with who was concerned that after 60 years of being together, Mom and Dad's marriage was starting to fall apart. They were both diagnosed with heart failure. And it had been about 15 months where the two of them were in their home 24 hours a day. Not only were they both in their home 24 hours a day, they were in their home and couldn't even go upstairs or downstairs to get away from each other. I have a great marriage, a wonderful husband. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for over a year would be a bit much. So is there a way, even if they're going to be in that same level of the home 24 hours a day, that a couple of you could go over and do some things with Mom over here that are interesting and someone else do some things with Dad over here, and then when they get together, guess what? They have something to talk about. He can talk about what he did over here with Linda, and she can talk about what she did over here with Ashley, and now you've even infused some separateness and some life into their togetherness. Anyway, I digress. So, but that was back at what are their living conditions. You need to take a look at it from their perspective. You know, Mom and Dad are living on their home and we brought in services. This should be good. But what are the stresses that are going on there for them as well? And then the legal and financial issues. And for those of you that were with us 2 weeks ago, we went over the power of attorney and the advanced medical directive and the things that you can do with your checking account, with their checking account, to help prepare them. So now you've got a picture of them, and then finally, what is their support system? Who's there besides you that can help? How many of you come from families where you're one of 2 siblings or fewer? How many of you are from 3 siblings or more? For those of you who think that it's easier one way or another, I promise you it's not. When I was caregiver for my mother, I was one of 7 children, and for 7 years we got to be caregiver for my mom and my dad. My husband is from a family of 2, and his nearest relative is in Juneau, Alaska. Not a lot of help. It's no easier for him as the sole caregiver than it was for my journey with my 6 sisters. So the caregiving journey is an opportunity for all of us, I think, to reach out to one another and create that system of support. All right, so now we've taken a look at our parents, and I'm going to flip through this. This is one of my favorites.
PowerPoint displays an older woman saying, "I know that I can be a difficult person to get along with, but don't worry, you can change."
And in all seriousness, what are the odds that anyone, excuse me, what's your name? Dawn, what are the odds that anyone could walk into your life right now and ask you to change who you are? Slim to none, I'm saying. So what are the odds that at this point in their life, your parents are going to change who they are? So if something's got to change, my suggestion is it's the people here in this room. So hopefully today we're giving you good strategies to help you find a way to do that. So now let's take a look at assessing your needs and that of your family. In every family, you know, you'd think, had the same mom, had the same dad, grew up in the same household, you'd think we'd all be the same, wouldn't you? It just doesn't work that way. So let's take a look at what are the strengths of the members of your immediate care team. And from those of you that are just a care team of 1, just go through and mark off your strengths, and we'll see if we can fill in some more a little later. So now I'm on page 3, and we're looking at what are your family's gifts. So put a check next to your gifts, and if you have a family member, put their initial on whatever gifts you think they may have that can help you in these areas. So how many of you were able to either check off or initial 3 areas or more? How many of you were able to do 2 or fewer areas in here? All right. So as we're looking at family caregiving strategies, we're seeing an opportunity, and those of you that have several gaps, we're seeing an opportunity for you to reach out beyond your family. But for now, let's just stay within your family and see what we can do to target some of the work. So if you have mom who is isolated, who might be the person in charge on this list? If mom's dealing with isolation or depression, who would you call from this list? And that's because you checked what?
Half-time caregiver.
That's okay, good. And perhaps maybe even emotional supporter if mom is depressed and feeling lonely. So if mom is having trouble getting around, if dad is no longer able to drive and mom can't get around, who would be the one that would take care of Christmas shopping for them and grocery shopping for them? Maybe the wonderful shopper. What if you've got someone who's a long way away, feeling left out, feeling hurt that they can't help, but maybe they have children and grandchildren of their own miles away. What would they be great at? Phone stuff, the information gatherer on the phone and on the web. That is a great way for those long-distance caregivers to feel like they're helping. It's not that easy to be a long-distance caregiver. And then you've all heard stories of, and then the long-distance caregiver comes in and they want to help, and so then they overdo and they take over for mom and dad, and they do more than mom and dad wanted, and mom and dad's feelings are getting a little hurt because now Cindy doesn't think we're capable of anything, and Cindy's going to the brothers and sisters saying, you guys aren't doing enough. Look at all I'm doing. You should be doing like... And really, it's just about that long-distance caregiver just wants to feel helpful, just wants to feel that they've got something of value to add. And so certainly caregivers don't have a lot of opportunity to do research. They don't have an opportunity to go find the information that might be out there that can help them. But it's a great job for that long-distance caregiver to have, to feel like they're connected.